Most Americans believe that as long as they're contributing to their 401k, their retirement is taken care of. But here's the problem. You're not saving for today's world. You're saving for the world you will live in decades from now. And after researching retirement planning and studying how people actually build wealth, I found something very interesting. The biggest retirement mistake isn't about failing to invest. It's about misunderstanding what a 401k was designed to do. And those misunderstandings can cost people thousands of dollars over the lifetime. In this video, I'll show you why millions of Americans unknowingly make these mistakes, and why a 401k alone may not be enough, and how financially successful people think about their retirement. My name is Rayan Bora, and on this channel we break down wealth, investing and personal finance using data, psychology and real-world examples. Before we talk about why millions of Americans misunderstand their 401k, first we need to understand what a 401k actually is, because surprisingly one of the biggest mistakes people make is misunderstanding the account itself. If you ever worked a full-time job in America, you have probably heard phrases like, just contribute to your 401k, max out your 401k, or your 401k will take care of itself. But what actually is a 401k? So at its core, a 401k is a retirement account which is offered by the employer to the workers to invest money for the future while receiving valuable tax advantages. In fact, the name 401k comes from the section 401k of the US tax code. What started as a small tax provision in the late 1970s eventually became the primary retirement system for millions of Americans. And unlike the older generations that relied heavily on pensions, the modern workers are largely responsible for their own personal savings, which is one reason retirement can feel overwhelming today. But despite that responsibility, many experts still claim 401k to be the greatest wealth building tool ever created. There are several reasons why. First, contributions are automatic. So money comes directly from your paycheck, which removes the temptation to spend it. Behavioral researchers call this one of the most effective ways to build long-term habit. Second, there are tax advantages. Depending on your employer, you may have access to traditional 401k, where you can receive tax benefits and pay your tax later, or a Roth 401k, where you pay taxes now but can potentially enjoy tax-free withdrawals in your retirement. Which option is better? It all depends on your personal situation. But taxes aren't actually the part most people misunderstand. The bigger misunderstanding is something much more basic, because many Americans believe that they are investing in their 401k. But it's actually not true, and this is one of the most misunderstood concepts in personal finance. So a 401k itself is not the investment, it's simply the account. Think of it like a shopping cart. The shopping cart doesn't determine your result. What you place inside the cart does. Inside the cart, people typically invest in index funds, mutual funds, target date funds, bonds and stock funds. And two people with the exact same 401k may end up completely different outcomes depending on what investment they choose, how they contribute, and how long they stay invested. Which brings us to another reason why experts love this account: compounding. Your money earns returns, and over time those returns can start earning returns too. Which is why investors say that time in the market is more important than trying to perfectly time the market. And honestly, that's powerful. But perhaps the biggest advantage of all is something people call free money. That is employer matching. For example, if your company matches contribution up to 5%, they are essentially rewarding you for saving up for retirement. And that's why many financial professionals consider employee matching as one of the highest return decisions an employee can make. But while all of this sounds great, there is one limitation many people overlook. A 401k was designed for one specific purpose, which is retirement, not emergency funds, not emergency expenses, not buying a car, not solving every financial problems life throws at you, which is why withdrawing money early can trigger tax and penalties. In short, this account was built for your future self, not your present self. And this is where things get interesting, because over time many Americans stop thinking the 401k as a tool and begin thinking of it as their entire plan. And that's what exactly happened to Mike. So this is Mike. Mike is 40 years old, he earns about $75,000 a year, contributes to his company 401k, pays his bills on time, and considers himself financially responsible. So in other words, Mike is doing exactly what other Americans do. And for nearly 2 decades, he assumed that retirement will take care of itself. But as he got older, he started noticing something. something started bothering him. Not because he wasn't saving, but because he began wondering whether he actually understood the system he's been relying over all these years. And the realization surprised him the most. The first discovery. When people asked Mike about retirement, he would confidently say, "My retirement plan is a 401k." But eventually he realized something. His 401k wasn't actually his plan. It was simply a tool inside one much larger system. It's like saying your fitness plan is owning a pair of running shoes. Is it helpful? Absolutely. But the shoes themselves don't create the results. Researchers have found that humans naturally prefer simple answers, and my 401k feels like a simple answer. But this wasn't the mistake costing Mike the most money, because his next discovery involved something much more painful. Free money he didn't even realize he was missing. Mike's company offered a match up to 5%, but for years he only contributed 3%. Not because he didn't want to invest, but he simply kept pushing off the decision. Economists call this inertia. Humans naturally avoid the decisions that don't feel urgent, and because retirement feels far away, many people delay optimizing their accounts. Unfortunately, small decisions over decades become very expensive. In fact, depending on your salary and market returns, missing out on your employer match for years could easily cost someone tens of thousands of dollars in lost contributions and compound growth. But eventually, Mike corrected that mistake. And then he made the opposite mistake. So once Mike became interested in personal finance, he became obsessed with making his retirement contributions. Sounds responsible, but then life happened. His car needed repairs, unexpected expenses appeared, and despite having the retirement savings, he didn't have much accessible money. Mike had retirement wealth, but he lacked financial flexibility. And that's when he realized something very important. Financial security isn't about how much money you have, it's about where your money is. At this point, Mike thought he figured out everything, but the next lesson changed his perspective again. So as Mike's income increased, so did his spending. A nice car, more subscriptions, more dining out, nothing extreme, just small upgrades. Now behavioral researchers call this bias. As income rises, so does the expectations. And before people realize it, lifestyle expenses quietly consume the raises that could have increased future wealth. But surprisingly, spending wasn't Mike's biggest concern. Something hidden inside his investment concerned him even more. It was his fifth discovery. Like many investors, Mike knew how much he contributed every month, but he had no idea how much he was paying in fees. And that's understandable. Fees don't send notifications. They don't feel painful. They quietly reduce returns over time. And that's what makes them dangerous. Because even small fees can quietly consume thousands or potentially even more over the course of several decades. This doesn't mean that 401ks are bad. Far from it, it simply means understanding your investment simply matters. But even fees weren't Mike's biggest concern, because eventually he started asking questions that many people never do. Mike originally thought that he needed a certain dollar amount to retire. But then he asked, what will that money buy actually from 30 years from now? And suddenly everything looked different. Because you're not retiring in today's world, you're retiring in tomorrow's world with today's money. Future healthcare costs may be higher, housing costs may be higher, everyday expenses may be higher, which means the retirement number that feels comfortable today may not provide the same lifestyle decades from now. And underestimating the future cost can leave retirees needing far more money than they have planned. And that's why retirement planning isn't just reaching a certain number. It's about preparing for an unknown future. But there was one final realization Mike had. And according to retirees, it is one of the biggest risks people underestimate. Most people fear dying too early. But financially speaking, retirees fear something else. It's living longer than their money. Because retirement isn't a finish line. It's potentially a decade of your life. Unexpected medical costs, market downturns, longer life expectancy. All of these things matter, which means successful retirement isn't about planning the future perfectly. It's about building resilience. So how do financially successful people approach this? They think in layers. They capture the employer match. They maintain the emergency savings. They manage the high interest debts. They invest consistently. They create flexibility outside their retirement accounts and review their plan regularly. Because retirement planning isn't just one decision. It is an ongoing process. Today Mike still contributes to his 401k, but he no longer expects one account to carry the weight of his whole life. Because what changed wasn't the account. It was the way he thought about the retirement. He stopped chasing a number and he started building a system designed to survive inflation, unexpected expenses, market downturns, and the uncertainty that comes with planning decades into the future. Ironically, Mike's biggest mistake wasn't losing the money, it was believing that he had everything figured out. Because thousands of dollars people lose isn't lost all at once, they are lost slowly through missed matches, higher fees, lifestyle inflation, and assumptions that go unchallenged for years. Because sometimes the most expensive financial decisions aren't the ones we make, they are the ones we don't even realize we're making. So most Americans don't have a 401k problem, they have a planning problem. Because a 401k was not designed to do everything. It's a powerful tool, but it's just one piece of puzzle. So today we talked about employer matches, fees, inflation, financial flexibility, and why successful people think in system rather than single accounts. And hopefully you now understand what many people spend years overlooking. You are not retiring in today's world. You are retiring in tomorrow's world with today's money. And your future self will either thank you for preparing or wish you have started sooner. If you find this video even a bit valuable, consider subscribing, drop a like and do comment. This is my first video and this is my first time talking in front of camera. So I have many things to learn, and please do comment what I can improve, and I hope people can learn finance through my channel. Thank you for watching.